A former guerrilla leader claims victory in Kosovo's elections and promises to declare independence from Serbia within a month. Is Kosovo heading for fresh trouble? And what role is the international community playing? This is Inside Story. Hello, I'm Imran Garda. Hashim Thaci claims victory in the breakaway province of Kosovo, promising to declare independence on December the 10th. With the province on knife edge, all eyes are on this date. This marks the deadline for the Troika representatives of the United States, Russia and the European Union to make their report about securing a final agreement between Belgrade and Pristina. Julian Madsen has more.
The victory of former rebel leader Hashim Thaci in Saturday's elections opens a new chapter in the history of Kosovo. At least many Kosovars hope so. His victory could spell the end to over 80 years of Serbian control of the province.
With our victory today begins the new century. Today, Kosovo citizens sent a message to the world.
Tachi has promised to declare independence after December 10, the UN deadline for ethnic Albanians and Serbs to reach a deal. To date, Tachi has indicated he'll declare independence only if the main powers in the dispute, especially the United States and the European Union, continue to back it. But any such declaration faces fierce opposition from Serbia and its main patron, Russia. Moscow insists it will not support anything the Serbs oppose.
The United Nations doesn't have the right to change the international border without the agreement of the country involved.
If the two sides cannot reach an agreement by December 10, the UN proposes granting Kosovo independence under international supervision, provided that Kosovo is not divided, does not join Albania, and does not go back to the pre-1999 situation. The UN plan also includes deploying international civil experts to monitor and implement the peace settlement. NATO forces would be granted a new mandate. Yet the province has already been under UN supervision for the past 8 years, following NATO's eviction of Serb forces. And this is the third election the UN has supervised. Still, ethnic Albanians remain outside the political process. At the urging of the government in Belgrade, Serbs boycotted the vote. But they weren't the only ones to stay away. Less than half the population turned up, leaving some wondering whether or not Tachi can act on his promise of independence.
Well, joining us to discuss the current situation in Kosovo are our guests. In Brussels, Lucia Montanaro-Jankowski, a political analyst and a specialist on the Balkans. And in Moscow, Alexander Pikayev, deputy head of the Committee of Scientists for Global Security. Unfortunately, we did have a guest from Pristina in Kosovo, Dukagin Gorani, a political analyst. He pulled out at the last minute, so be that as it may, we have two guests. And Ms. Jankowski, if I could start off with you first, ma'am. Kosovo bracing for Hashim Thaci in power. What does it mean for Kosovo?
Well, Hashim Thaci, who claims victory, I mean, there's still certain counts to be made. There's still also what coalitions will have to be made to unpack. However, Hashim Thaci is considered a hardliner. He was a hardliner in the negotiations on Rambouillet, who was renowned for not backing down on, not wishing to back down on the independence in 1999. He says that he will declare unilateral independence, which the EU foreign ministers have urged him to not do so at this stage. So certain concern in the international community is evolving.
Mr. Pikayev, there's a sense from the EU ministers that they see Thaci as quite immature. I've got a quote from Swedish Foreign Minister Carl Bildt. He said, what Thaci must understand is that there is a difference between being a politician in the opposition and being a prime minister. Do you agree?
Yes, definitely. There is a certain concern here that this former rebel commander has been elected as a prime minister of Kosovo. And we here also hope that this of course, influential leader of a part of ethnic Albanians in Kosovo would become a real statesman and would follow real interests of Kosovars. Mr. Tachi received a victory, that's true, but he didn't have majority. He had something like 32% of votes, as far as we understand here. And this is not majority, it is a minority. Minority of Kosovars participated in elections between 40 and 45%, so that Mr. Tachi doesn't have a mandate to pursue military, foreign and security policy. Mr. Tachi has to demonstrate his ability to have deals with other factions of Kosovars, and he must demonstrate a will for political maneuvering in order to represent all Kosovars, both Albanian and Serb origin.
Yeah, you spoke about those of Serb origin. Do you think the Serb minority's boycott of the election was a mistake?
Well, I believe that it's a very difficult situation. On the one hand, international organizations, including the United Nations, they wanted all people of Kosovo participated in elections, but Serbs didn't do that because they didn't feel themselves secure. Majority of Serbian population of Kosovo had to flee Kosovo after 1999, when Kosovo was transferred under international mandate, and therefore those refugees, they were not able to participate in elections. This was probably a reason why Serbs didn't want. So they could be understood, but again, international organizations wanted them to participate, and they could receive a certain quota in Kosovo parliament if they participated in these elections.
And Mr. Pikayev, Russia will continue to support Serbia in opposition to Kosovo's independence. One has to ask, what's in it for Russia?
Well, Russia would support here an international law. Because independence of Kosovo without its recognition from Belgrade might represent a break with the overall international relations traditions after the World War II. There was no any precedent when the country was split as a result of foreign intervention like now Kosovo would do. So that Russia supports international law. Russia doesn't have problems to recognize Kosovo, but the necessary precondition is continuing negotiations with Belgrade, and two sides, government in Belgrade and Kosovars, need to find a deal which would permit to maintain the Kosovo question within the international legal system.
Ms. Yankovsky, is there credibility to the Russian position regarding Kosovo?
I mean, it's clear that the whole issue of Kosovo has been of a certain importance for Russia, and there's often commentaries lining the Kosovo issue with the issues in the Caucasus. It is clear that if Kosovo becomes independent, Russia will utilize this issue for the South Caucasus. However, this risk also exists in many other areas. I mean, that is also why certain EU member states are fairly concerned over the independence of Kosovo, such as Spain and Cyprus. But it is also true that the current situation cannot continue. It cannot be a stalemate for another 50 years. I mean, it simply won't hold. So some kind of contractual agreement will have to come out of it, and not through a unilateral declaration, I certainly hope not, but some kind of agreement instead of a continuation of two dialogues who are totally deaf to each other's compromises.
And if and when, or if or when, Kosovo is granted independence or declares itself independent, how will it support itself? Because some would argue that Kosovo will be extremely fragile, particularly economically.
The other argument is that once Kosovo has a clearer legal status, investment will be much easier.
Understood. But do you think that there's the possibility that Serbia may attack?
No, I sincerely do not think that Serbia will attack militarily. That there will be diplomatic attacks, yes, that some factions, either Albanian extremist factions or Serbian extremist factions, may provoke violent clashes, yes, that I do believe could happen. However, I certainly do not see the Serbian army attacking Kosovo.
And do you think Mahdi Ahtisaari's plan of supervised independence is still the only way, the best way, or just maybe one way of solving the crisis?
There's several aspects in President Ahtisaari's proposal that are still very useful and still very much the current thing on the table. However, although many issues regarding the decentralization and the protection of the minority rights and the organization of the municipalities were clearly defined, we still get back to the core obstacle of status, and that cannot be imposed. So we're still in this stuck.
Alexander Pikayev, what happens if Serbia does agree to the Ahtisaari plan? Would Russia then support Serbia's decision?
Well, if Belgrade and Pristina would find a deal, Moscow has no other option other than to recognize that deal. If it includes Kosovo independence, Russia would have to accept Kosovo independence, like, for instance, just a few months ago it accepted independence of Montenegro. It also seceded from Serbia with agreement from Belgrade. Russia didn't have any problems to recognize that. But unilateral independence of Kosovo would raise many serious questions. For instance, why Kosovo could secede from Serbia, but at the same time Serbs cannot secede from Bosnia. They want to secede from that country for many years, and probably they have some right to do so, the similar right like Albanians and Kosovo. Some other minorities might raise this issue, and my colleague mentioned that there are problems of that kind in Spain, in many other European countries, in Caucasus, in Russia itself, in many Muslim countries. And this is why in the United Nations not only Russia opposes unilateral recognition of Kosovo independence, but there are many other states, including China, for instance, including some Muslim states, so that there is a quite much broader international opposition to that. It's not limited by Moscow only.
Well, both our guests in Moscow and Brussels stay with us. Time for a short break. When we come back, we look further into the roles of the international community in the Kosovo crisis and explore the influence of the main players in the debate over Kosovo's future. Do stay with us.